All right, well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and that must mean it's time for another Food for Thought Friday. Let's go. Did you know that your most confident team members may just be the ones who fail to advocate for themselves? Weird, right? Well, this is the takeaway from research conducted in 2021, appearing in the Interdisciplinary Journal of Society Studies. Now, check out the article somewhere here on the screen. As always, I'll link it below. And today, I'm pulling from an article, 2021 article titled "The Relationship Between Locus of Control, Self-Efficacy, and Entitlement in the United States." Now, initially, I'd been interested in this research because of the perception that there's an increase, as of late, in general attitudes of entitlement. And it seems to me that people today are far more entitled than even a decade ago. And I was curious why this might be the case. Well, the implications of this research were more than I had anticipated and should be cause for consideration when we consider how we advocate for our teams. And so, without any further ado, allow me to read the opening paragraph to this research article. And it says, "In recent years, the idea that younger generations tend to expect to receive desired outcomes without having to put forth the effort needed to earn those rewards has been trending in the academic literature and anecdotally in society. These tendencies to expect unearned rewards may co-occur with personality characteristics that have potential to impact goal attainment and self-actualization. By increasing our understanding of these personality traits and how they interact with one another to impact important life outcomes, we may be able to enact change to maximize success among future generations. This study examines the interaction between locus of control and general self-efficacy in predicting psychological entitlement using two definitions of entitlement." End quote. So there's already an absolute ton right there. So let's look at a few of these definitions. Within the psychological literature, there are two distinct perspectives on entitlement, and there's the personality psychological perspective and the social psychological perspective to entitlement. And I'm going to read again from the paper, and this is explaining the personality psychological perspective. "One view of entitlement depicts deservingness as an unearned, perceived right to certain outcomes, where the individual's actions or behaviors are not aligned with the expected reward. This perspective, which is presented in the personality psychological or psychology literature, sees entitlement as a socially detrimental trait related to narcissism, in which the individual has unjustifiable and unrealistic expectations about what is deserved." End quote. And so we might take a look at entitlement and say, well, that's how we understand entitlement. Now, there is another perspective within the psychological literature, and it's a social psychological perspective, and I'll read again from the paper to explain this. Quote, "Another conceptualization of entitlement in social psychology literature is associated with social norms and obligations. It is premised on the principle that each member of society has the right to certain benefits and supports. This approach includes pro-social perspectives of deservingness and promoting the idea that individuals deserve to pursue their own goals without harming others and to have certain basic needs met by society." End quote. So we've got two different perspectives on entitlement. There's the personality psychological perspective and the social psychological perspective. Now, multi-dimensional approach focused on both elements of entitlement, suggesting that it can be pro-social and antisocial, depending on the situational context. So is entitlement always negative? Well, it depends on the context. It depends on the situational context. So based on this multi-dimensional approach, these researchers have conducted a three-factor model of entitlement, consisting of active entitlement, which is self-promotion and goal obtainment. Passive entitlement, which is the societal responsibility to care for its members. And then there's a third interesting factor, which is revenge entitlement, which is the individual's unwillingness to forgive past wrongdoings and to seek revenge on those who have harmed them. We're not going to get bogged down too much on those definitions. All three of these factors, though, have a present narrative of personal agency, right? So for active entitlement, there's a belief or an understanding that I have agency to be all that I can be, to reap the rewards of goal attainment. For passive entitlement, there's an understanding that I am an individual free agent deserving of all the greatness the world has to offer by virtue of my existence. And for revenge entitlement, there's an understanding of I exercise free agency and that I am the sole deciding factor on the forgiveness and the revenge that I choose to dole out, and I alone deem this necessary and appropriate. So there's a general theme of agency that runs through these factors of entitlement. Again, we won't get bogged down there. We just need to cover a few definitions to get the real takeaway from this research. So that's entitlement. Let's look at locus of control. Let's define it. According to Julian Rotter, locus of control is the tendency of an individual to attribute outcomes or rewards to either internal or external factors. Let me tease this out a little bit for you. Somebody with an internal locus of control, internal locus of control is the extent to which an individual perceives that they are in control of life events, and to the extreme extent that they are the master of their own destiny. Okay, these people make life happen. They don't experience life thrust upon them. They create their reality, or so they perceive. They create their reality and their own destiny. And if we look sort of in historical social sort of terms, if you were an agricultural community and there was a good harvest, these people with this internal locus of control might say, well, I carefully watched the weather patterns, sowing and reaping when it would be advantageous to do so, right? Their good harvest was a result of what they did. And you might hear somebody with an internal locus of control saying, I make my own luck, right? In more of a modern sense, I make my own luck. The external locus of control, by contrast, is the extent to which people believe that events of life are out of their control. Life happens to them. And then again, if there's a good harvest, maybe historically, if there's a good harvest, they might be found saying they've been blessed by the gods, or the universe has looked favorably upon them, right? Life events are due to external influences or factors. So the extent to which an individual perceives the outcome to result from outside forces versus personal behavior or actions determines whether the locus of control is internal or if it's external. Okay. In 1985, a researcher by the name of Kerr hypothesized, and it was confirmed by Carnes and Knotts in 2018, that entitlement occurs when individuals believe that achievement outcomes are driven by external locus of control rather than internal. In other words, if a person believes life happens to them rather than they make their own outcome and destiny, then they are more likely to be entitled. Let's look real quick now at a definition of self-efficacy. And self-efficacy refers to an individual's belief about their ability to accomplish a given task. It's, self-confidence, self-belief that you're able to accomplish a task. And so self-efficacy is concerned with an individual's belief that they possess the requisite goal-related knowledge, skills, abilities to achieve desired outcomes, whereas locus of control is concerned with whether or not that outcome is actually in their control. All right, so let's move on. We won't get too much more bogged down with the details. Probably boring, probably dry, but I want to set that framework. So here's the study from this paper. The researchers took 316 participants born between 1946 and 2000. Then participants completed a self-report survey measuring entitlement. Now we know what that is. Self-efficacy, we know what that is, and locus of control. The results indicated that locus of control and self-efficacy significantly predict active entitlement. Do we remember what active entitlement is? Let's go back to the definition. Locus of control and self-efficacy significantly predicted active entitlement. Higher levels of self-efficacy and more external locus of control were associated with lower levels of active entitlement. Okay, that was finding 1. Finding 2. The results indicated that locus of control and self-efficacy do not significantly predict passive entitlement. Remember, passive entitlement is more of that narcissistic, the world owes me everything by virtue of my awesomeness, I don't have to do anything for it, right? Locus of control, general self-efficacy has got nothing to do with that outcome. Okay, so this research didn't account for that. Results further indicated that locus of control and general self-efficacy significantly predicted revenge entitlement. I'm not going to get into that one. Let's just take a look at the first finding. Locus of control, self-efficacy, predicted active entitlement. So what does that mean? Here's a takeaway. So if we take that based on the conceptual logic underlying these findings, one might have expected that individuals who feel competent to achieve their goals, right? They got a high degree of self-efficacy, and they believe that outcomes are within their control, they got the internal locus of control, we might expect that these folks would demonstrate more of a tendency to advocate for themselves to receive the rewards that they believe are due them. Now, this logic is supported for the locus of control factor, but the direction for the relationship for the general self-efficacy is opposite from what we might expect. I'll explain what I mean. Individuals who feel more competent to achieve their goals are less likely to demand what they believe they deserve. Say that again. Individuals who feel more competent to achieve their goals are less likely to demand what they deserve. In other words, people who believe that they possess the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities for specific goal attainment, they have high levels of confidence, they're still less likely to advocate for what they believe they deserve, even when they believe that they are in control of the outcome. So what does this imply? That as leaders, we need to recognize our highly competent and highly confident team members and advocate for them. Because chances are, they might not be advocating for themselves. All right? So there we go. Hope that helps. Follow me for more.